So first off, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement and welcome. And in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation, Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. I'm very lucky to be joining you tonight and very fortunate to be here. My name is Jordan Stewart, and I'm the CMSA Technical Manager. I've worked with players from about 4 or 5 years old, and my son, who's currently 3, although I don't really consider working with him working with a player. It's more just playing with my son and having a good time, all the way through to university age players throughout the province, and seen a lot and kind of been to a lot of the places in the province here when I was with Alberta Soccer as their regional coach for Southern Alberta and the Alberta Recs director. My portfolio there revolved around player development, so provincial team programming, Recs programming, supporting some of the boys' high performance programming, and then also trying to help out clubs with their programs and districts with their programs as well from a player development lens. There was also pieces around district outreach to go out and support what districts were doing, and then lastly through coach education. So I was kind of a Swiss Army knife for ASA, and throughout all of my experiences working within grassroots club soccer, professional academies with FC Edmonton as their former U18s coach, the PSO with Alberta Soccer, youth national team development systems through the Recs, and involved in U15, U17, and U20 national team camps, college and universities, community outreach programs in Edmonton, and then lastly with a district governing body, which is where I'm at now. So this is really almost a 360 lens, and maybe the most robust lens of anyone in this province on the game in this province. The one level I haven't worked at is the first team professional level with either FC Edmonton or Cavalry, or the UWS level with the UWS women's team. So why am I sitting here? Well, initially I was brought on to develop a 3-year technical plan, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this tonight because we are coming to the end of its lifespan. But if you are interested in where we started and where we've gone, this document can be found on our website at calgaryminersoccer.com. It covers 3 key areas around the game from a technical lens around govern, develop, and grow. And so you can see on your screen that we've completed some pieces. There's some pieces still ongoing, and there probably will be going into the next technical plan. And then there's also some pieces that have been delayed in different areas. Now, someone's going to say, is this it? This is all the plan is? Well, no, this is the public-facing document. The actual document is around 43 pages long, with metrics and evaluations, checkpoints, hurdles, who it's assigned to, everything detailed out to try and keep us on track and try and keep us making progress and being accountable really to ourselves to continue to drive the game forward and to implement what best practice is telling us. You'll see there on the grow as well, some ongoing pieces and some completed and then one delayed. So this is where we're at with that technical plan. I'm currently writing the next version of the 2024 to 2027 technical plan, and that should be released in the new year. So finalizing that piece and trying to really nail down how this is going to contribute to our strategic plan, how it's going to contribute to improving the game, and how it's going to continue growing and developing the game from a technical lens. And really at the core of all of it is the Canada Soccer Player Pathway. This is where players will enter, potentially exit, or progress either vertically or laterally through this document. And so I wanted to make sure that people have an awareness of what this looks like in a general sense across the country, but then also what it looks like from a Calgary and localized sense. So what we have is we have CMSA that operates at stages 1, 2, 3, and 7. So you'll see active start, fundamentals, learn to train, soccer for life, both the community and the competitive. Now, hopefully players flow upwards through this into either train to train, soccer for life kind of avenues. And that would look like developmental leagues like the AYSL at U14, where that starts, which are regional and provincial style programs. Now, the AYSL is a league, not a program, but the player development program is the piece there that the clubs deliver on behalf of Alberta Soccer and put their own unique spin on what a player development program is. Should you continue to progress, you can move laterally into Rex and professional club academy programs, and then up through the youth and senior ranks into senior national teams and professional first teams. Maybe you don't have that ability, interest, motivation, or even a little bit of luck to get you there as a player. Well, you can always move up into the local Calgary United Soccer Association, which is our men's and co-ed leagues, as well as our Calgary Women's Soccer Association. From there, the leagues that operate in the competitive are the AMSL, which is the Alberta Major Soccer League. And then also from there, you would flow through into the senior train to compete, which is around universities, colleges, the NCAA, USL2, UWS, and newly launched League One Alberta. Now, I'm going to hit pause there for just a second. I'm going to go back to everyone who's joined us and welcome everyone again. If at any point you've got a question, you've got a something that you need to try to write down before it escapes your mind, please feel free to put it in the Q&A or the chat. I'll periodically be popping in and out and monitoring that, and look to try and answer them as quickly as I possibly can. It doesn't give me a notification when one comes up, so please be patient. If I haven't quite gotten there, trust me, I will. And we've disabled both your cameras and your mics tonight just to keep the bandwidth up and to make sure everything is running smoothly tonight. I've asked my wife to not be streaming anything on Netflix while we're doing this, and maybe to stay off of Instagram or something while this is going on. So hopefully no hiccups, and we can keep things going strong here tonight. So welcome everyone who's just joined. I'll spend a quick second just speaking to the CMSA program handbook. And what this is really the CMSA Bible, if you will, that we produce before every single registration period that we expect our clubs to be basing their registration package off of. This gives them the detail of what the season's going to look like from a start date and an end date, not necessarily what day of the week certain groups are going to play on. Gives them an idea of the cost structure, the match formats, etc., etc. It's a fairly robust document that really is the backbone of what Calgary Minor Soccer is and gives you a sense of what we're doing. If you want, you can look this up on calgaryminorsoccer.com, and I'd ask you to think back to the registration documents that maybe your club produced and what you registered for, and think about, was it aligned and was it accurate to this document? We produce this every season, and really it can be your first go-to to really find out what the next season is going to be looking like. Another big piece that has impacted the way soccer is delivered, not only locally here in Calgary, but across the country, is what's called club licensing. And so the initial layer of club licensing is called SQS in Alberta, or Standards for Quality Soccer. At a national level, the terminology is quality soccer provider. For some reason in Alberta, we just always have to do things our way and do things differently. What Standards for Quality Soccer is really a rubber stamp and a check mark to say this organization does adhere to some basic standards. Those basic standards are 37 criteria. Now, you'll see on your screen a deadline of May 1st, 2023, and most of you are probably going, wait a minute, that is long past. Why is he still talking about this? Well, I'm still talking about this because this is a picture of what our landscape looks like in Calgary right now from a club perspective and a club licensing perspective. We have numerous clubs who are National Youth Club license holders that have achieved the highest level of club licensing within our country. We're very proud of them. And we're equally as proud of those SQS holders that are in the middle of your screen. Then at the bottom of your screen, you'll see numerous non-licensed clubs. And so what the non-licensed clubs have been given is they've been given a deadline of yesterday to have all of their action planning done to actually be submitting and fulfilling the SQS requirements. Should they not be fulfilling and working towards those SQS requirements by the end of the indoor season, they will no longer be members of CMSA and no longer have access to CMSA until they get their club licensing sorted. So they won't be able to open up an outdoor registration should they not get things sorted. Now, people on this call are probably at one of those clubs or have heard of some of those clubs. Most of them are working towards it. There are a few that need a little more persuasion than others, but most are working towards it. And people will say, well, this seems easy. It's only 37 criteria. Well, yeah, one of them is having a name. That's 1 out of 37. And typically the entire paperwork takes between an hour and a half and 4 hours to finish up and complete and submit. So why haven't all of these clubs done it? Well, a big hindrance is part of the coaching standards. And we believe that every single player deserves a quality coach and that better coaches are going to equal better players. So these coaching standards are non-negotiables. These coaching standards are passed down from Canada Soccer, through Alberta Soccer, through us to the clubs. And so what we have is both a modified and a full safe sport roster. After consultation with our clubs in a collaborative effort, we as Calgary Soccer and the clubs and district within Calgary have decided that the modified safe sport roster for right now is from U3 to U11. The full safe sport roster in terms of coach training is from U12 plus. So for tonight's argument's sake and for tonight's info, we're going to focus on that modified safe sport roster. Now you're going to see down there that we allowed it to be older in terms of between U11 and U12, as long as the club signed on to the 3-year coach training plan to improve the standards of coaching within their club and also transition their training environments at those ages to the CMSA preferred training environment. This is a big step, and this is going to be a big change throughout the system that's going to occur. And should you want more information on that, please feel free to drop us an email at info@calgaryminersoccer.com. But this is a lot of work and a lot of consultation is going to have to happen with the clubs over the next few years. What clubs used to do in terms of registering teams and getting coaches eligible and meeting standards before these 37 standards were in place and before there were coach training obligations and standards and requirements within CMS leagues, is they would put one person on all their rosters that has completed one of the courses to try and find the loophole in the rules. Now, all coaches need to have the required training to be eligible on the rosters. Now, that's not saying that all of your coaches have the appropriate training right now to be on the rosters and to be eligible, but this is what we are moving towards. And we're moving towards a model of club accountability to do what's right, not what is easy. And their willingness to adhere to basic standards are going to determine their longevity in soccer in Calgary. And so what are those coach training requirements? Well, this comes from a few different documents that we've made, but this is deeply embedded right now within our rules and regulations. So for tonight's sake, for the U7s to U9s, you would be focusing on this top row. And so what we have is a very basic requirement of our coaches that are largely volunteer, that have busy lives, have young kids. I'm a father of 2 young kids right now, so I can empathize with how busy and chaotic life can be. But what we have are basic safe sport standards, which are here in blue, and then basic technical standards, which are over here in the colors. So in blue, all of our coaches must have completed an EPIC, which is a criminal record check with vulnerable sector search to weed out anyone who could pose a risk to our young children. Then they have to complete what's called Respect in Sport Activity Leader, which is a 3-hour module focused around bullying, abuse, harassment, and discrimination, and to remove those from sport. Then from a technical lens and from a coaching lens, you'll see this here with fundamentals, and you'll see 2 columns with theory and practical. Well, what's required for coaches is this theory component, which is online at their leisure whenever they like, and it's delivered through Canada Soccer. Then the recommended coach training is to complete their practical portion, which is, pardon me, which is a 3-hour on-field practical piece with an experienced learning facilitator that's going to help them develop as a coach and give them lots of tools to be able to create great environments for our kids. You'll see the roadmap that we've also created within these documents to help get some clarity for these coaches around what's required and what's recommended and how you can complete everything to become the best possible coach that we can, given where our standards are right now. The courses that we've offered, as you can see on your screen, some are well attended, some are not well attended or not well registered. You'll see Learn to Train and Soccer for Life typically get a lot of responses because these are largely more seasoned coaches and it's more required for the leagues that they're coaching in. But we believe that our youngest players deserve the best possible environment and best possible coaches that we can possibly find. But you'll see that these courses typically are fairly low in terms of registrants. In fact, that October 23rd and 22nd course both were canceled. So we need to make sure that we're encouraging our coaches to be getting this done and to be making sure that we facilitate these courses in a fantastic way that's accessible, that people can afford, and that also is just enjoyable to be at. Just going to pop back in and have a look at the chat and the Q&A. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any questions, so we will soldier ahead. We always get asked this question in terms of how in the world does CMSA build our schedule? Well, what we did is we created a handy infographic for you. So I'll skip some of this just for the sake of time, but we asked the clubs to submit Tier 1 declarations that give us a sense of how many teams are going to be in each league. Then we asked them to submit all of their teams to us on team entry. That team entry deadline is October 2nd. Then we have a Club Connect where we align all of the leagues with the help of all of the technical leaders within the city. We all sit together in a room, usually about 40 of us, and we go through team by team, league by league to make sure that those teams have got meaningful competition and that we can give the best possible league experience as we can while adhering to giving everyone a consistent schedule as early as we possibly can. Then we send that back out. They send it back to us to catch any possible mistakes. And then we try to determine some preset play dates. So typically within the U7s to U9s, this Grassroots League, we will schedule them on the Saturday mornings through into early afternoon. This is our biggest, most important player pool within CMSA, and we want to make sure that we give some consistency within those times where we can. We then confirm that we have those times with our field permits, and then we look to start building this schedule. Then two ladies at CMSA manipulate the schedule over the course of about a week it takes, and then we look to publish. They reschedule games based on tournaments and etc. and weather and outdoor, and then we do it all over again the next season. And the numbers for this indoor are we have scheduled over almost 5,700 games, and our percentage of growth for team registrations is up 16% over last indoor. So we've had a 16% growth, but we haven't had a 16% growth in facilities. And we know facilities are always a difficult topic and a difficult subject come the indoor season because we are at a massive shortage of facilities here in Calgary. If we compare it to hockey, hockey have 72 ice rinks. They have 72 Zambonis, 72 concessions, 72 sets of nets, 72 bleachers, 72 refrigerated ice rinks. We have Calgary West, we have Shoaldice, Genesis, which we use, Calgary Soccer Center, and the Macron Performance Center. For a total, if I can do the math quickly, of 8, 12, and another 8 is 20 fields, 21 fields, including Genesis, to schedule all of this on for a total of 5,700 games from last weekend until the beginning of March. It's wild what these two ladies do, and they deserve an award for sure after every time they go through this. What you'll see potentially within the U7s to 9s is a thing called biobanding. You might see some groups have some older players on their team. What those older players could be is they could be brand new to the game. They could be brand new 8-year-olds that are maybe playing in a younger age group. And so what biobanding is, it's the process of grouping players and athletes based on their attributes associated with their growth physically and their maturation, rather than just their chronological age. Because children of the same age can vary considerably in maturation, with some maturing in advance or in delay of their peers. So simplified, kids grow at different rates. Some get big really fast, some stay small for a long time. Can we give an experience and an environment that all of these kids can flourish, not being restricted by their size? So we actually allow players to play down in our leagues, and there's a process for that and some expectations for that as well. There's also some pieces around conduct that I would be remiss if I didn't quickly speak to. And really, it's up to all of us on this call and all of us involved in the Calgary soccer community at large to set the standard of what's acceptable and not acceptable, and that we dictate what kind of culture we actually want to exist in. And so I leave the picture of the pig wrestling up on the screen. And really all that happens when you wrestle with a pig is you get covered in you know what, and the pig actually enjoys it. So if there's conduct that you don't feel is appropriate, there's conduct that breaches our numerous codes of conduct, then please submit a formal complaint to CMSA's formal complaint line, and we'll look to investigate. We want soccer to be unbelievably accessible, inclusive, enjoyable, and safe. And so with that, that comes with parent, coach, and player expectations to be good citizens and to model pro-social behaviors. It's that simple. Can we support our kids? Can we love our kids? Can we have them have a good time and give them a great sporting experience? Free of abuse, free of yelling, free of bullying, free of discrimination and harassment. It's very simple. And so to try to become a more inclusive and to expand our game, there's some things that we're trying to do as well. And so part of it is around our Empower Her, which is our Women and Girls initiative. And what we're trying to do there is attack it from numerous lenses. And attack might be the wrong word, but try and address some of the issues from a few different lenses. So there's coach-focused pieces around female-only learn to train practical sessions that are open for just women to attend and to feel safe attending their coach education. There's on October 21st, we had a female-only entry-level course where young girls are becoming new referees, and we filled it with 20 brand new female referees. And that's not including the new ones who took it in just the mixed gender courses as well. We're very proud of how many young female referees are starting to enroll in soccer. It's actually amazing. And then to be determined, we're just sorting out the dates for a free soccer Friday. That's girls only. For girls, by girls at the end of the day. So these age groups that I'm speaking with tonight, the U7s to 9s, well, you won't see referees on the field for your age groups, but I think it's important that you know what we're trying to do within the referee kind of domain and how we're trying to increase both quantity and quality so that when your children are older, that there are referees for all of their games and there are 3-person crews by the time they hit the 11-a-side game. So we're putting on extra entry-level courses. This season, we're going to have trained almost 180 brand new referees that will be eager to get involved and eager to start refereeing. They've already started as of last weekend. Project Ref is a program with Kidsport and Hockey Calgary where if any child's receiving Kidsport funding, they can actually come and do an entry-level course for free. They can get all of their gear for free, and they can do any upgrading through the referee levels for free as well, provided by Kidsport. We're immensely proud of this and very thankful to Kidsport for their contributions to this. You'll also see referees like the one on your screen in what we're calling the Teal Shirt campaign. And the Teal Shirt campaign really is an awareness to eliminate referee abuse and harassment by acknowledging who these first-year referees are and acknowledging really that they're going to make mistakes. And that's okay, that they're going to get it wrong. And that when you see them on the field, that might literally be the very first game of their life and the very first time they're blowing their whistle in front of 40, 50, 80, 100 people. And that takes a tremendous amount of confidence. It takes a tremendous amount of guts. And for that, I respect all of these new referees tremendously. To try to help them become better referees and to continue refereeing, we're pairing them up with more senior referees. And so that image that you're seeing on the screen is actually an interaction between one of our mentors and one of our young referees. You'll see the form on the clipboard, and that helps to guide that new referee's development and their developmental plan to try and really target what they're great at and to brush up some of their growth areas. We're providing these mentors with some additional education, and we're going to be instituting a zero tolerance policy for referee abuse. If there are any coaches on the call, there's free education for you up until March 31st, 2024. And a lot of these courses and modules really are tremendous. The basic mental skills, planning a practice, and teaching and learning really are the foundation pieces of what coaches need. You need to be able to teach. You need to be able to interact and to connect with young children and people and to inspire them from a mental side of the game. You have to know how to plan your practice and what really is included. And then that last one around make ethical decisions becomes a requirement as you start to progress through coaching and to stay with coaching as you get more experience and move through the age groups. And lastly, just wanted to briefly mention our Free Soccer Friday initiative and to make sure that there's some clarity around what this actually is. Well, it's a drop-in soccer opportunity available for anyone at any of the locations that we offer it. We want this to be a, how do I put it? Adult-free environment where kids can come, they can play unstructured games, they can meet new kids, they can advocate for themselves, they can try new things, and it's safe and it's overseen by some CMSA part-time staff. We have found great success with this so far. The enrollment and the kind of attendance has been far more than we thought it would, and we're going to be expanding what this looks like very shortly. The next few upcoming dates are November 3rd, which is this Friday at the Calgary West Soccer Center, November 10th at Genesis Center, and November 17th at the Calgary Soccer Center. All of this information and dates and everything and times can be found on our website at calgaryminersoccer.com. Give me one sec. Just going to check the chat. Everyone's a pretty quiet group tonight, so either everyone's asleep or they've been bored to tears already, and they're like, I can't talk or can't stand him talking anymore, so I'm not even going to ask any questions. But here's the piece that you've probably tuned in for tonight in terms of what does indoor 23-24 look like for the U7s to U9s. Well, I want to make sure that there's clarity in terms of what we're doing and where things are going. What you'll see on your screen is a list of registered players for CMSA by age groups over the years. Now, what you won't see is outdoor 2023 or this indoors numbers on this graph quite yet. But here's where we were. We saw massive increases in terms of the numbers of players from U7 to U9. And someone's going to say, well, that's amazing. Well, no, the numbers lie a little bit. What that means is that clubs were required then to register all of their house league players and in-house players as well. So it's not that there was this dramatic increase. There was just this group of players that were never registered previous that should have been, that were then required to be registered. So that green arrow is a bit of a lie, but it still gives you a bit of an idea. And what we saw is we saw decreases at every single level of the game. We saw that players were leaving the game and not actually sticking with it. And we also know that the number of registered youth players in Canada, and granted, this data is about 10 to 12 years old now. It's well north of the figure that you're seeing on your screen. didn't really compute in terms of the number of professional players that we had. So we knew that some changes needed to be made because we were 10th in the world for the number of registered youth players that we had. And we are statistically the worst in the industrialized world at developing soccer players. You actually had a better chance of becoming a pro coming from Costa Rica than you did coming from Canada, with all of the resources and infrastructure and everything built around the game here in Canada. So what did we think? And what did I do when I first sat down on the job, when I had to really take a hard look at things and think about the direction that soccer was going to go in Calgary, and how were we going to lead part of this change? And we know that change always happens. We don't smoke on airplanes anymore. Coca-Cola is not seen as a medicinal product, and that we have seatbelts in cars. We don't have babies just laying down having a nap or the other ones jumping around going crazy throughout the drives. We have seatbelts. So we know that change happens all the time. But what the hard thing to do is to improve. Change is very simple to do, but to improve things is where it becomes more difficult. And the other difficult piece is around having people accept the transition to the new change and modification. That transition period is often the hard part, because we change our clothes every day. We change our cars when they break down. We change our schools when our kids advance through the grades. Heck, we even change our soccer clubs locally here and there. So we change, and we know that we change, and that we're actually quite comfortable with change, but it's the transition that sometimes hangs us up. And so we knew that we had to begin with the why. Why do we need to change? And so we knew that the old structures, or those current structures that we were dealing with in programs, did not facilitate providing sport for all or developing elite athletes in this country, as I was talking about. And we attack this change from a four-corner model, which is, you'll hear it throughout your child's development. It's an acknowledgement that we're not just developing a technical aspect in a player, we're developing the person from a technical, tactical, from a physical, from a mental, from a social, emotional lens. And really, in our opinion at CMSA, and this is modified from Dan Abraham's psychosocial model, is we believe that the mental, social, emotional fuels the other outcomes from a technical, tactical, physical sense for these kids and for these players. That if they're feeling good, if they're socially connected, and if their emotional well-being is tended to, oh man, we can create some fantastic kids that are both lifelong participants and elite players as well, because participation will fuel progression, and progression will fuel performance within them. And as long as we know that we can get the culture tuned in to be supportive, to be positive, and to be challenging at the same time, we have got a fighting chance here. And we needed to make sure that we acknowledged that any sort of change that we made at the district level, and you'll see the old logo on here, so forgive me, I need to change that. But any change that we make at a district level impacts everything else potentially. Granted, it's not going to impact TSN, we know that, but it's going to impact families and clubs, maybe pro clubs, maybe the peers and schools and pathways that are in place as well. But at the end of the day, it impacts the person and the player at the center of everything. And so I'll give you a second to really think about, as you're going to embark on this soccer journey, how do you believe your club and coaches select players? And what do you think the actual evaluation criteria is for those selections and players as they go through trials and evaluations and assessments at these clubs? Herman's asked a question, what's the easiest way to get all the infographics, education path matrix specifically? Herman, if you can send an email to info@calgaryminersoccer.com, I'll be sure to reply to you tomorrow with whatever you need and point you in the right direction. So as you're just thinking about how you believe your club and coaches select your players and what that evaluation criteria is, well, Canada Soccer actually did an LTPD, which is long-term player development survey. And 50% of these U9 to U12 coaches said skill was how they selected players. So purely subjective and perceived by me, the coach, as to who's skilled, who's not, and where their ability is. And all of the research around talent ID, talent development, talent selection shows no correlation between skill or performance at these ages when we're starting to say you're good, you're bad, you're ugly, between those ages and elite level performance. So the question was, why do we continue with this method of selection? And why do we continue with this method of game and format of game within Calgary minor soccer? And what we know is that the traditional model of choosing a select number of players based on performance levels at a specified time, organizing them into a team, and then having them compete against other teams is flawed in the following ways. Well, it doesn't accurately predict potential or future performance. It'll often turn away players who might have high potential, but who might have just been new to soccer at that moment relative to their peers. And that early selection prior to puberty implies the early exclusion of the vast majority of players and will discourage players who might otherwise become as good or better if they were just given some time and a chance to develop. And also, the characteristics that define talented athletes in an early age are not the characteristics that define elite athletes later in their career. Think about the 12-year-old player who's bigger, faster, stronger than the rest, that gets put up front, ball gets played over the top lots, they run, they score goals because they're just faster than everyone else. Is that developing them? Is that what an elite athlete looks like later in their career? Because at that elite stage, that center back and that fullback are as fast, as strong. And if they don't have other tools in their toolbox as a center forward, they're not going to score goals anymore. And that we also know that there's a disconnect. And this is an okay disconnect, but it needs to be acknowledged that we have an expectation of a sport system that works like this in a linear, constantly progressing manner with a defined beginning and a defined end. But our reality through youth sport and through sport looks something like that. It's about non-linear development, non-linear pedagogy and coaching and teaching. And that we know that you'll go forward, backward, sideways, up, down, left, right, and that there is no defined endpoint until, well, you know what, you have two kids and you can't really make it out to too many games anymore. So you just play in a beer league tournament here and there. And there's the disconnect. We want it to be on the left, but it's always on the right. And operating on the right is difficult because that's not a consistent roadmap for anyone. And that roadmap looks so different from child to child and family to family. And so developing one framework doesn't work. And we know that we need to have flexibility in our systems. We also know that the features of a positive developmental setting are around physical and psychological safety. Because if you do these things incorrectly, sport programs can actually be quite intimidating and frightening for children. Secondly, that there is an appropriate structure that's clear, consistent, age appropriate, and that there's appropriate adult supervision with qualified coaches. That's the appropriate structure. That there's supportive relationships and that there's an opportunity to belong to a community, to a team, to a group, to a club. And that there's positive social norms being exemplified in terms of how society should operate, and not in the typical masculine, aggressive, competitive, gladiatorial model of sport that we might see glamorized on in Hollywood. That there's a support for efficacy, and that it has to be child-centered and promote empowerment and autonomy and opportunities to experience challenge and struggle. That there's opportunities for skill building through developmentally appropriate program design and coaching. And that integrating these pieces in terms of family, school, and community leads to an optimal environment. And this is how we're trying to structure the game. Could you imagine what soccer would look like if all of these things were put first and put forward? into all of our clubs, all of our programming. What a beautiful, beautiful environment we would create and are trying to create right now. And so one of the things that we often hear is that, well, this grassroots league, the U7s to nines, well, it's not competitive. There's no scores and standings posted. We know that's just not necessary. We know that kids compete. Kids compete. And even looking at that photo that I've provided, the one player doesn't even have shoes on, is competing. The other one's in blue jeans and the other one's in black jeans, and they are competing. I guarantee you there's no formal scoreboard for this game, but they're competing. And that oftentimes us as adults, well, we compare, and comparison is the thief of joy. We often see competition as the role of master, thus not serving the athlete in their long-term development. And really, it needs to be seen as servant. I was going to say, where does this go? Nope, wrong slideshow. Perfect. So where are we at? What underpins all this? I talked briefly, I mentioned LTPD. Well, LTPD is really the bedrock and framework that all of our programming is designed after. It's about, what is it now, 15 odd years old. And it's starting to show its age in some pieces, but 90% of it, I would say, as just a guess, is core to where we're going. Core around developing physical literacy and basic fundamental movement skills. Core around developing a love for the ball. Core around developing some sort of mastery from a technical standpoint. And core around developing just a love and fun for the game and of the game. And then hoping to progress through it to learn to train. And what Canada Soccer did for us is they created the Canada Soccer Grassroots Standards as a way to align the game coast to coast, province to province, city to city, rural to city districts. Everyone, here's our framework that we need to be abiding by. And so we've dove in. We've dove in as Calgary Minor Soccer and said, yeah, we will align to this. We will align to this as closely as we possibly can. And here's where we vary. I'm going to hold my hand up and tell you right now. Our pop-up goals are 4 feet by 6 feet. They do not meet the maximum goal size for U7. And they're, arguably maybe a little bit small for our U8s. Our U9s play on a 6 foot by 10 foot. So we're off there as well. We'll hold our hand up and say, we're off. But when you make an investment of 220 pop-up goals, and about another 75 that are 6 by 10, it's a significant financial investment that we've made to put out a game and a match day experience that we believe is developmentally appropriate for these kids. Not saying that Canada Soccer isn't saying that theirs are developmentally appropriate. This is just where we are right now. You'll see pass and dribble ins as restarts. You won't see throw ins. You'll see players put the ball down and dribble it back in. You'll see games continue even when the ball goes out of bounds. The players just keep playing. And we don't need to stop them when the ball goes out of bounds and say, whoa, 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 whoa. That's out. It's your ball. It's theirs. As long as the ball's rolling and players are playing, life's good. Life is very, very good. You'll see here in terms of substitutions and retreat lines, you'll see team travel requirements. You'll see fair playing time, and you'll see coach to player ratios. And then you'll see this, a game day format in a festival format. And what I'm going to do is I'll describe that in just a moment. Other research that we've used, and this is a common piece where we talk about the U9s. The U9s, there's a lot of people, a lot of parents, maybe a lot of uneducated technical leaders that will say the U9s need to be playing 7v7. I say, oh, okay. What data are you using to base that opinion off of? They really don't have any sort of data at all. What they have is an opinion. That's about it. An opinion, for lack of a better term. And what we've found, and this is a Manchester United 4v4 pilot scheme. The FA, the English FA, did this with Man United and the Department of Exercise and Sports Science at the Manchester Metropolitan University. They did a formal study on 4v4 or 8v8 and different game formats within that. And so they did a quantitative bit, so they counted numbers of actions, and then they did a qualitative bit. They did a survey afterwards with the participants. And so here's what they found in these games. Number of passes was the most within the 2-goal game. So there's 1 goal here, there's 1 goal here, and there's 2 teams. No goalkeepers. Resulted in the most number of passes. You'll see the line ball game where there was no goals and there was a line that you dribbled over in order to score, or passed over as well. Sorry, you'll see the most number of goals and the most number of dribbling skills when we actually take the goals away. So again, a different outcome there. Then we put goalkeepers in, and you'll see the most number of 1v1 encounters in when we put goalkeepers in goals. Then there's a 4-goal game where each team would defend 2 goals and attack 2 goals. No goalkeepers involved. And you see the number of scoring attempts there. And then we get to an 8v8 game with a goalkeeper, 7 players on the field. And it didn't actually surpass any of them. It was actually the worst game format in terms of this analysis for providing anything. And these are the averages from 4v4 games to 8v8. For me, as a parent, I want my kid on the ball. I want my kid to be scoring goals. I want my kid to be playing 1v1 against kids as many times as possible. And so when we go and we give our youngest players a format that's not going to be optimum for them to help them develop, I don't know. I don't know if our future is in the best hands it possibly can be. So think about that. The next time your club coach goes, we need to sign up for a tournament that's 7v7. Well, sure, it might be just a great experience for a tournament, but you can always pass them along our email, and I'll make sure to have a conversation with them about game formats and what might be slightly better. You also see the qualitative results here in terms of those surveys. And well, 80% of positive comments came obviously from club directors, coaches, and administrators, people who kind of knew what was going on. But 68% of comments were positive from parents. That ain't bad. And 75% were from players. And they said, yeah, it was pretty good. We liked it. And so I'll give you a quick overview of what this is. So we try to keep things quadrant-based within the Grassroots League to keep the game as close to home for busy families like you, so that you're not traveling across the city all the time. And you'll also see this thing called open rosters. What open rosters are is it's a way that the club can actually utilize finding the appropriate game for your child on the day, so that if there is a mismatch on the day, well, we can mix them up. And we actually advocate for certain player groupings as well throughout the year. Open rosters means they're not tied to that coach, to that team for the entire season. So if they're not having a good experience, that they can be mixed in with other kids, and that we actually encourage our clubs to be mixing and training this entire group of players as one player pool, not as team A, team B, team C. Because for me as a parent, I'm just rolling the dice on if my kid's got a decent coach with a decent facility, with a decent training time, if they're in team A, team B, or team C. Whereas if it's varied, we get a much better outcome potentially. We also know that playing time is incredibly important, and that we want to maximize developmental time and touches. 80% of parents, 93% of players, and 94% of coaches indicated that playing time was very to extremely important to youth sport participation. This is from Amanda Vissig's groundbreaking research in terms of the fun integration theory. And I would encourage you to maybe read that paper or find a quick summary online. We know that when we keep things local, that we have a better chance of fostering a sense of community and connection as well. And this is necessary because it establishes a social climate that motivates children to develop. when it's close to home, when it's easy, when it's simple, and when it's with like-minded, like facility, or sorry, like geography kind of people, it becomes easier. And that seriousness is really the thief of playfulness, and that we want to take away the seriousness of the game at this point. We want kids to go out and express themselves, to have fun, to be positive, to be creative, to enjoy their football at the end of the day. Because the competitive nature of sport often undermines that sense of community, especially in youth sport leagues. And the what? Where should I go from here? I'm just trying to think about what we've covered and what we haven't. I'm gonna go quickly to the chat or the Q&A. Very quiet group tonight. We continue to forge ahead then. We'll talk about player groupings. This is how we advocate for player groupings, is to switch this up. And so we've developed this kind of guideline in consultation with our clubs, where initially we had said it should be social relationship based and mixed ability all the time. Again, based on research. The research says that ability-based groupings long-term don't provide any better outcomes. So why do we do it? In fact, if those player numbers were decreasing, we're not developing elite players, you would think that we would be changing this stuff up. So we've met a compromise where social relationships, so the kids that you, I don't know, go to school with, go to church with, live in your neighborhood, do they all get grouped together? And the kids actually, novel concept, maybe make their own groups for those weeks. They get the power to decide who they're playing with. And they can say, oh, I want to play with those kids. And they go and join that match day group, as opposed to you're stuck on this team, on this roster, with this coach, with these kids forever. And then let's do some by ability. Why not? We'll find that compromise and we'll be able to do that. That's fine.
Managing the logistics of the match day can seem daunting, but it's really quite simple. Once you arrive to the field, please find your club's technical leader on the day, and they will help to coordinate where you're supposed to be and where your players are meant to be playing. If you need additional assistance, Calgary Minor Soccer Association employees.
Oh, apologies.
Will be there to help manage the flow of the day, to help find your field, and to help make sure that kids are enjoying their experience. On match day, players are going to show up in their groups, ready to play. But should there be some lopsided games, this concept of open rosters gives clubs and coaches the ability to move groups of players from one field to another in order to find more meaningful competition and players that are around the same ability. We can move entire groups and swap them with one another within your club, or we can move individual players that can balance out the groups from game to game. In order to move the players, it would be recommended that you contact your club's technical lead during the game by either giving them a quick phone call or putting your hand up and allowing that technical lead to facilitate the rearrangement of the groups or players from game to game. That's a key function of the club's technical lead on the day, is to make sure that all of their groups are finding meaningful competition and connecting in with the coaches of those groups. Coaches, on match day, your responsibility is to help create an environment and experience that is fun, safe, and fair. When we talk about fair, we mean even matchups and players having meaningful competition on the day, and also making sure that your players are getting even and equitable playing time amongst all of them.
We just dove right into that video. Sorry for no heads up with that, but that's really a core resource that you can find on our YouTube, and that's a snippet of it. I'm going to speed ahead a little bit in terms of some other pieces. Quickly, I know this is a lot of text, but role of the club within all of this is enter your teams, rosters, your match day rosters, and having technical leaders from their club on site, organizing the players, and then modifying those match day groups that we just talked about. Now, I've also got to communicate to all the parents the changes to the match days and ensuring that they've got the correct number of coaches for the mini matches, and also monitoring that coach behavior within the mini matches and trying to model pro-social norms within that. Our role is determine what quadrant all of these clubs are in, book the fields, create all of the schedule, and organize all of that. And then on match day, all of the logistics and timing of the matches, the setup, the takedown, the flow of people, attending to any emergencies, having a first aid kit, and making sure that balls can be pumped. What does this indoor actually look like? Well, it's 13 match days for this group, and through a developmentally appropriate match format, which I'll speak to very quickly. It'll be at Calgary Soccer Center, the Genesis Center, or Calgary West Soccer Center, and the core piece, that open rosters that we've chatted about earlier. Our U7s play in a 3v3 format with no goalkeeper. Now, someone's going to say, XYZ club team had a goalkeeper for their game and it wasn't fair. Well, maybe that kid just really loves playing in goal. And that for 15 minutes, your kids will see more of the ball playing 3v2. Your kids will probably have more scoring opportunities, but they'll have a harder scoring opportunity. And that this isn't the end of the world. These will be 6 and 7-year-old kids just trying to show up and play the game. And you'll see some of them running around in their snow boots. Think about how serious of a game that is and how serious it is if some kid wants to stand there in goal and pretend to be a goalkeeper for a few minutes. It's not the end of the world. You'll see dribbles and pass-ins to restart anytime the ball goes out. You'll see 3 15-minute matches, and when players score, they're meant to run back and touch their own goal while the other team fishes the ball out of their net and plays. We don't have formal kickoffs. It doesn't need to be that structured. For the U8s, you'll see 4v4. So add an extra player, and all of the same pieces are the same as the U7s. Also with no scores, no standings. The U9s, you're going to see a 5v5 format with a bigger field. They're going to have a goalkeeper as well, but the same kind of dribble and pass-ins to restarts. And then you're going to see 2 25-minute matches for each match day. So they'll have a 25-minute match against someone, you'll hear a horn or a whistle, and then they'll move over to another field, leading to an increase in opponents and variation in opponents. A field map here on what Calgary West Soccer Center looks like for the U7s and 8s. You'll see a blue line around the exterior of this image. That is where the spectators can go. We do not want parents entering into the field, and we do not want parents crossing the white line of the 11-a-side field. There simply isn't room. It's a safety concern, and we're going to be asking our staff to be ushering parents off of the field. It's also a way that we're trying to increase the longevity of a FIFA Pro quality turf field, which is the highest quality of turf pitch in the world right now, and one of only 2 in Canada. Literally the only turf field of this quality in Western Canada right now. Our U9 fields will look like that with goals back to back. Don't get hung up on these field numbers. Our part-time staff may change them on the day to find a better logistics solution. At Calgary Soccer Center at Genesis, our U7s and U8s will play on the thirds, and these become 18 by 28 fields. So they're actually bigger than what our outdoor ones are, and they have more space. Our U9s will play the same kind of style as what you saw at Calgary West Soccer Center with 2 goals, one goal being in the wall and the other goal being back-to-back at the halfway line. Someone always asks us, where does all of the money go? Well, here's where all of the money goes. Our CMSA fee for indoor for each one of these players is $115. $6 of that goes straight to Alberta Soccer as their per player fee for these age groups. So really leaves us with $109. And our price per match day, apologies that this is 14, I've mucked that up. Anyway, it should be 13. So call it $8 per match day, approximately. Where exactly do these player fees break down? Where do they go? Because, wow, that seems like an expensive match day. Well, the majority of it goes to booking fields, paying referees, and other league-related expenses. There's also a small portion that contributes to future facilities and also renovating and upgrading current facilities within our control right now. There's a donation that goes back to Kids Sport because they supply and provide funding to the tune of over $500,000 to families and kids within Calgary to continue playing the game. As I mentioned, a portion goes to Alberta and Canada Soccer as their per player fee. Some of it goes to local referee development. And someone on the call is going to go, well, wait a minute, we don't have referees. Why are we paying for referee development? Well, you will have referees, and hopefully by that time you have enough referees and enough good referees to have good quality games as well. And then a very small portion goes to pay for CMSA staff and administration to ensure that Calgary Soccer is running efficiently and continues to innovate the game. This is an important slide that if and when your child gets injured, please fill out the form on Alberta Soccer's website, and it has to be done within the first 30 days of injury. You use your personal insurance money first, and then Alberta Soccer insurance kicks in after that money is exhausted. We know that physio and rehab expenses can add up quickly and exhaust personal insurance, so make sure that you fill this out and that you have access to it should you need it. Okay, I'm going to pause there and go to the chat quickly. I see some of us have gone the distance with me tonight, so thank you very much. I know it's a bit over time, but really appreciate you hanging in there. Got one final video to try and end on, and then open the floor to any questions. And really, it starts here. It starts now for a lot of these kids. The dream starts now. The community starts now. The passion, the development, the commitment, the challenge, the ups, the downs, the sideways. It all starts here within Calgary Miners Soccer and within your clubs and really within the beautiful game. So for that, I thank you. I thank you for having committed this season with us. We hope that we're going to provide an unbelievable experience and that your kids are going to fall in love with the game. And also that we can help guide you as parents and help you with any problems that you have as well. I'll leave this slide up in terms of our contact information and all of our social media accounts if you want to connect with us on those as well. I'll leave those up and I'll open the floor to any questions or comments, anything for tonight. This always gets recorded and uploaded onto our YouTube account. So if you want to review anything or if you want to share this with anyone, that's where it can be found. Really thank everyone for tuning in and for hanging out. Not a lot of questions tonight, but really appreciate everyone giving up some time. You could literally be anywhere in the world doing anything, and you've chosen to spend some time with me tonight. So truly grateful for that and truly thankful to have you involved in the game. No problem. Vision is what we can provide and what we can do. So I appreciate the comment. I think that there were a couple of pre-submitted questions that I could probably try to answer. One is around, I have 3 kids who play for CMSA. Well, none of them play for us. They play for clubs within CMSA and soon 4. That's amazing. Says the fees are really high. Is there a plan to give good discounts to parents who register more than 2 kids in the same season? It's a great question, and really, you have to talk to your club about that. Most of our clubs, and I say most because most have options for parents, but they just need to be notified of what the situation is. Most will have some kind of volunteer bonds. Most will do fundraising. Most can waive fees as well if they need to, but they need to know. So if you're one of those families who is facing some barriers to participation from a financial aspect, then you need to have a conversation with your clubs. They want to help. The people in our clubs want to make sure that kids have access to the game and can play. They don't want to be restrictive. And so I don't want to say they'll always, but usually they'll find a way of making it happen. So have a conversation with them and make sure that they know. There's another question around games and times. The full schedule is on our website. And if you haven't gotten your schedule yet, please view our website at calgaryminersoccer.com. And if your club hasn't given you that, please contact your club first to find out your team's like training schedule or when you're getting your socks or shorts or jerseys or whatever. That happens at a club level. So that's taken care of by them. I'll hang around for another minute or two. I'll leave this up on the screen, and if anyone else has any questions that's still on the line, please feel free to ask, and more than happy to have a conversation about anything related to the game. If not, I'll assume that everyone has fallen asleep, and I'll look to end the meeting at some point. You're very welcome. Thank you for attending. I appreciate that. Okay, well, I'm going to shut it down for this evening. If there are any further questions, feel free to drop us a line or give us a call at our office. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your evening. Take care.